What is happening, everybody? This is Dave Croft, and welcome back to another Q review, where I feature a Q written by a member of the 52 Qs community, and I provide feedback like you might hear from a music supervisor or a potential library. Today we are checking out Miracle Lake, which is an indie acoustic Q written by 52 Qs community member Robert Raede. Now, this has already been forwarded along to a potential library, so this is somewhat of a victory lap, but I definitely wanted to feature it. So we're going to take a listen to it, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. All right, so that was Miracle Lake from Robert Raede. And I do hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Please let me know if I am not. But thank you so much, Robert, for sending this along. This was sent during our week 38 weekly feedback threads. We put feedback threads together every week. And so like I said, this was already forwarded. I believe this was a taxi listing. And so this was already forwarded. He had a couple of those forwarded along. So first of all, huge congratulations, man. And I'm wishing you all the best. So this is somewhat of a victory lap, but I did want to give some feedback to you, just potentially to help you either with future cues or maybe when the library hopefully gets back to you. And the first thing that I noticed, first of all, stellar playing. Layering is fantastic. Love the octave layering we have going on. You know, just taking the melody, playing it up the octave, almost like a mandolin vibe. And by the way, as far as the form goes, I really like this this extra bar you added right in here before we go into this B section. And I wonder if maybe a little bit of a stop down or an edit point, not necessarily to come to a screeching halt, but it's like almost a 2/4 bar or something like that, just to give it a little bit of a pause so that if an editor wanted to kind of fade out there, they could. And one of my big takeaways here at the top, and I brought over Insight, which gives me kind of a stereo field. And if we look at the stereo field, it feels pretty or relatively narrow. Let me hide some things here. So it feels pretty narrow in terms of the overall stereo width of the sound before the piano comes in. And so I'm imagining you recorded your acoustic guitar in stereo, but I wonder if one of the layers, maybe the octave that you bring in, I wonder if we can do so a little bit more widening, something as simple as adding a delay, like a 10 or 15 millisecond delay to the right side or to the left side. And in Logic, I would do this with the sample delay. But I just want to put this on here just to see what this would sound like This is Logic's sample delay, so I'm going to put, let's start with a 10 millisecond delay. And let's just see, maybe I might be totally wrong here, but let's see how it sounds. Let's try 15. And we could see the width. Yeah, definitely, probably wouldn't put it on the master track because now we're widening everything, the entire signal. But you can see we do get a lot more. You know, if we look at the different meters here. If you're listening to this in the audio feed, hopefully you can kind of hear the difference. It's, again, pretty narrow, and again I could tell it's recorded in stereo, but it just feels a little narrow. And that's with the sample delay. Let's try a 5 millisecond. Now, where we have to be really, really careful if we're looking at our meters here, we have to be really careful not to overdo it. Otherwise, we run the risk of phase issues, which we have a little bit of now phasing issues when I'm looking at my meters like this. You know, I want to stay kind of above 0 up to +1. Now things are getting so right now it's too wide because it's on the master bus, and I probably wouldn't put this on everything like I've done, but I think just adding a little bit more widening, we do get more stereo width once the piano comes in, which is a welcome addition. But that's one thing that I would recommend, especially as we have multiple guitar layers happening. I think that could help, so everything doesn't kind of jumble there in the middle. And as far as the mix goes, I do feel like it was a little mid-heavy. And I think maybe just ducking back around at 500 hertz or so, and I feel like we're getting a little bit too much of the body of the acoustic. All right, so this is that's without. So that's without a 500. And that's me just ducking back around 500 hertz by about 4 dB. And I wouldn't put it on the master. I would probably put it just on that acoustic, and that's just a suggestion for you. And once the piano comes in, I feel like we could have gotten a little bit more out of the bottom end, basically 50 hertz and below. Not that it needs to be huge. We don't need a big chunky bottom end on our mix, but we really don't have much energy, really, below 80 hertz or so. We could have used just a little bit more of that, especially here towards the end. Oh, and by the way, the mix was really soft. I had to boost this by 5 dB to get it kind of near minus 14 LUFS or so. So everything was pretty soft. The original levels had it. If I were to bump that back down to 0, the original levels. If we go to our loudest spot here. Yeah, we're cooking around minus 18, 17 LUFS or so. That's pretty quiet. And so I just did a 5 dB boost here in Logic to get it loud. And then the last thing I'll say is, there was a squeak right there. Now, this is kind of like the pedal noise in in piano samples and that kind of thing. I mean, this is as real as it gets, but it's kind of stepping out or popping out a little bit. So I'm going to open this up in RX here. Let me get my face out of the way, and let's see if we can't find this. There it is, right there. You kind of see how it pops out of the mix. And so RX, and this is not a commercial for RX. I am not sponsored by RX or anything. If you're not familiar with it, iZotope makes RX, which is kind of like Photoshop for sound. And I wonder, let's look here into the guitar denoise, and let's deselect that. So I'm going to select squeak here, and let's just see if we can't get rid of that squeak. So I'm going to select it. Let's render it. Oh, it didn't like that. It's just not going to do it here. There we go. See, the idea isn't to completely remove it. The idea is just to minimize it so it doesn't stand out. Because if we look at the waveform, we can clearly see that spike. But let's select this. I'm going to bump up the sensitivity and the reduction here. Let's render it. And now we go back into Logic, and we can see the spike is gone. So now it sounds like you're moving your hand, and not necessarily an error, a recording error. And so it's a real tough balance that we have to ride, right? It's a line we have to tread carefully when we're dealing with recorded sounds. How much do you take out? It's like, listening to audiobooks or even podcasts. Do you go in and forensically remove every breath noise? Well, that could sound artificial, but we also want to kind of minimize things as much as we can. Love the stop down here, or the ritardando or the rallentando. I like this. Personally, I probably wouldn't have hit it so intensely for so long. But again, this was accepted into the library, so obviously, or this was forwarded along from the taxi screener, so something was going right here. By the way, I like the stereo things that are happening with the organ here. And then the absolute last thing I will say is I think we have click in the audio tail. I'm boosting it. So that's something to keep in mind. It probably came through your headphones, I'm imagining. And so if you are not tracking with closed back headphones, then I highly recommend getting some. The workhorse closed back headphones are going to be the MDR 7506s from Sony. This is what I use. I've used these for years. I've recently, however, switched to the Sony MV1s, the MDR MV1s, which are open back. And I switched to those because they're kind of like the 7506s without the need to run Sound ID reference or some kind of bias compensation plugin like that. But thank you so much for sending this along. Like I said, this was sent along during our week 38 weekly feedback threads. And again, congratulations, Robert. I know this was a forward, and I am wishing you all the best. If you would like to have your cue featured here on the 52 Cues YouTube channel and podcast, then we pick a cue posted every single week, and we'd love to hear from you. I think I said week 38. I meant week 39 there earlier. And if you would like feedback on your own cues, we provide feedback every single week for our family subscribers during our weekly feedback and critique sessions, and we'd love to have you join us. Why don't you head over to 52cues.com and see if one of the subscriber plans is right for you. But as always, thank you so much for your continued support to the family, friends, and patron subscribers. But that is going to do it for me this week. Until next time,